Shalom, family.
Shalom.
And welcome to another new moon, new month as it pertains to Yahweh's calendar system. And a new moon represents a new month. And this new moon gets us closer to our new year. And with that being said, hopefully everybody has been doing their unleavened cleaning. And if you have not been doing it, it's crunch time. For those listening on the airways, if you're not sure what needs to be done, please send us an email so we can let you know what you need to be looking for. Don't go asking your friend who might have some Texas toast hidden in their deep freezer somewhere. Send it to the UCI so you can get a true answer. Because everybody's not doing the cleaning they're supposed to be doing. Okay? You might be asking somebody who might take you out for a burger, doing unleavened. So please send us an email so we can give you the proper guidance. Okay? I mean, some of us are truly trying to walk. Some of us are just presenting a face while they're around you. Okay? So please send an email and we'll get you in the right direction of what you need to be aware of. Tonight's class is called O Wretched Man That I Am. And this comes from some self-evaluation, okay? Which is something that we don't always do. We here have gone through this. Many of us know you judge yourself, so you be not judged. But what does that really mean? A lot of people don't really understand what it means to look at themselves, to look internally, 360 degrees, the situations you put yourself in, the things that push your buttons, the people that push your buttons, how you handle situations and circumstance. And I know we're constantly gaining new members, so sometimes we got to back up and go over things that we've gone through already. Because everybody's looking for some type of guidance on this walk. But at the end of the day, just remember, judge yourself so you be not judged. At the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be judged. A lot of people can only see everybody else and can't see themselves. That's a danger. And I can honestly tell you that once you judging yourself, you've got to also be able to be honest with yourself. There are certain things that you have done in the past that you will actually overcome, and it won't be a problem. You can see it head on, boom, as if you don't even see it. Other things you might think you have under control. Till somebody go rouse that old lion and you're ready to rip their heads off. Then you realize that, you know what, I really don't have this under control. But even with now realizing you don't have that under control, when you can speak to your brothers or your sisters and they can calm you down and talk to you rationally, then you can work on yourself. There's certain situations that, hey man, we can look at each other, but this also takes working with each other. Be able to look at each other and be like, okay, what you got going on? It might just be a look. Hey, I remember some years ago, it was a little boy, and the little boy was doing something that I basically told him, you ain't getting no cake. The little boy looked at me and said, oh, I'm going to get me some cake. And I turned around and looked, and Sock grabbed me. Hey, Kish, it's a little boy. It's a little boy. But see, all he did was see the look that I gave him. Sock was like, that's a little boy. Don't rip his head off. Even though he speaking up like a grown man, don't take his head off. So those are things that we need to be able to look at each other and be able to read each other. You know, hey, we got a brother in the room that, hey, we mentioned something. Who, what, where, when? It's like, okay, we need not to say this certain things around him because he ready to go rip people's heads off. But we all have that breaking point. But can we be honest with ourselves? Or do we really think that because we baptized, we good? Do we really have that once saved, always saved mindset? You know, hey man, it's sad when you hear people talk about, oh, I know I'm chosen. Okay, Lucifer's chosen too, to go to the lake of fire. What are you chosen for? Let's begin in Romans chapter 7, and we're going to read verses 7 through 25. Romans chapter 7, and we're going to read verses 7 through 25.
What shall we say then? Is the law sin? Elohim forbid. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the law, for I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet.
Now, on the opening slide, we saw a whole barrage of things going on. Well, we saw a man at the top with the Bible. Okay? When you want to know where you stand after you judge yourself, hey man, that's what you judge yourself by, what's written. Not by what I think, feel, or believe. Go to the scripture. That's why that man was at top. What did it say? I did not know sin if it wasn't for the law. Where do you find the law? We're not talking about man's law, we're talking about Yahweh's law. And what does the scripture say? A man without law is a beast. Go ahead.
But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of concupiscence. For without the law, sin is dead. Sin was dead. For I was alive without the law once. But when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. And the commandment, which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death.
In verse 9 it says, for I was alive without the law once. Hey man, we can all attest to how we used to party and get down. We thought that was living. We thought we had it going on. But now that we understand the law, does that mean we're not living? I think that's where a lot of people get lost into thinking that now because you come into the truth, you can't do certain things. You can't enjoy yourself. No, you change the way you do certain things. Go ahead.
Verse 11. For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me. Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just, and good. Was then that which is good made death unto me? Elohim forbid. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceedingly sinful.
So he says, wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just, and good. Was then that which is good made death unto me? Just like I was saying, now we find out what is good. But then people want to act like it's a death sentence. I can't do this no more. I can't do that. What you doing over there? Hey man, we're looking to gain everlasting life in the kingdom. Dawid was said to be a man after Yahweh's heart. We can read about Dawid partying until he's coming out of his clothes, can't we? That's the kind of joy this walk should bring. Go ahead.
Verse 14. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that do I not. But what I hate, that do I. If then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that is good. That it is good. Now then, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. For I know that in me, that is, in my flesh, dwelleth no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not.
Now, when you go back to verse 15, for that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that I do not. For what I hate, that I do. That all sounds confusing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's how this walk can be if you don't slow down. If you don't slow down and get a grip, your walk can be just that confusing, and then you're ready to give up. Go ahead.
Verse 19. For the good that I would do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. Now if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me.
Now, if I know what's good, but I choose not to do good, you blame me. You knew better. But the man is letting you know, I'm a human being. I'm going through things. We all go through things. But the sad thing is when all you can see is what other people are doing. The sad thing is when you can't see yourself. And a lot of people present a face. But when they're away from you, they're sad individuals. If you ever get to breaking down their walk and what you know about them, you realize there's some sad individuals in the midst. Go ahead.
Verse 21. I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. For I delight in the law of Elohim after the inward man.
So the love for the law, the love for Elohim causes evil to be present. So there's always that fight with the inward man. But do you see the fight with the inward man, or all you see is the fight of the outward man? Do we examine ourselves or do we examine everybody else? Go ahead.
Verse 23. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind, bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my members. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I thank Elohim through Yahshua the Mashiach, our Adonai. So then, with the mind, I myself serve the law of Elohim, but with the flesh of the law of sin.
So with my mind, I'm serving Elohim. But my body telling me go crack him in his face. We constantly have a fight. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of my mind. We were raised up in an unrighteous society. So we always have that fight. Not to mention the other things that are inherent. There's just some fibers of us that we were born with. That's a whole nother fight outside of the environmental influences. But can we honestly look at those things and deal with those things? Do we honestly look at daddy's traits, mommy's traits, uncle's traits, auntie's traits, and realize that's all family? And then say, you know what? I got some of them traits right there. Or do you just look and say, man, my auntie foul as hell? Let's go to Revelation chapter 3. Revelations chapter 3, and we're going to start at verse 14.
And unto the angels of the church of the Laodiceans write these things, saith the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of Elohim. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm, and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth.
So, do we know where we stand? Are we cold? Are we hot? Or are we lukewarm? That's something we all have to figure out for ourselves. I might tell you something, but hey, your desire and your passion, I can't see that unless you showing it. We've got people who might not be able to show up here but once every other Sabbath, maybe one Sabbath for a month. Do I get the right to say, man, this man ain't even walking right? I don't know his work situation. I don't know his life situation. Hey, Yahweh might be saying, that's a man after my own heart. And I'm sitting here saying, man, this man show up when he feel like it. Figure it out. Figure out your walk. Are you hot or you cold? Or are you lukewarm? He just told you what he do with lukewarm. Go ahead.
You know what? When you really look at lukewarm, it's both. It's hot and cold.
Mm-hmm.
So you this is how you end up being in the middle. You hot and you cold, and when you put hot and cold together, what you end up with? Lukewarm.
Mm-hmm.
So because they can't focus on what it is they're supposed to be focusing on, they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
You end up being lukewarm. So you can't be good, you can't be really good, and you can't be really evil. So Lucifer don't want you, and Yahweh don't either.
He's just a bench warmer. I can't make a team. Go ahead.
Verse 17. Because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye slaves, that thou mayest see. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, and I will come in to him, and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as also overcome and am sit down with my Father in his throne. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches.
Even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. What are you overcoming? The biggest obstacle to overcome is oneself. Okay? That's the biggest obstacle in your way. We look at the picture here and we see all this stuff going on here. You notice I got both male and female because it says, even though it says, "O wretched man that I am," remember what's at the end of woman. So I just don't want everybody to think this is just about the brothers. Okay? This bottom picture here, hey man, this man ain't doing nothing he ain't being allowed to do. Okay? So it ain't just old wretched man, old wretched woman is in there too. Go ahead and read the definition there for me, my brother, of wretched.
Wretched, H8, obeyed, active participle of H6, concretely, wretched, or abstractly, destruction, perish.
Okay, so you stay in your wretched ways. This is exactly what happens after a while. You perish. Let's go to Numbers chapter 11. Numbers chapter 11, and we're going to read verses 1 through 15. Numbers 11, start at verse 1.
And when the people complained, it displeased Yahweh. And Yahweh heard it, and his anger was kindled. And the fire of Yahweh burnt among them, and consumed them that were in the utmost part of the camp. And the people cried unto Moshe. And when Moshe prayed unto Yahweh, the fire was quenched. And he called the name of the place Tibra, because the fire of Yahweh burnt among them. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting, and the children of Israel also wept again, and said, Who shall give us flesh to eat?
So are we conscious of who we allow to be around us? They guiding you or you guiding them? Go ahead.
Verse 5. We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic.
You know, we've read this a couple of Shabbats ago, and it says, or I think it was at Bible study, we remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely. You see how we think that certain things are free? No, you were slaves. You were working for that. You weren't eating freely. Go ahead.
Verse 6. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all besides this manna before our eyes. And the manna was as coriander seed, and the color thereof as the color of bdellium. And the people went about and gathered it, and ground it in mills, or beat it in mortar, and baked it in pans, and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was as the taste of fresh oil. And when the dew fell upon the camp in the night, the manna fell upon it. Then Moshe heard the people weep throughout their families, every man in the door of his tent. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled greatly. Moshe also was displeased. And Moshe said unto Yahweh, Wherefore hast thou afflicted thy servant? And wherefore have I not found favor in thy sight, that thou layest the burden of all this people upon me? Have I conceived all this people? Have I begot them, that thou shouldest say unto me, Carry them in thy bosom, as a nursing father beareth the sucking child, unto the land which thou swearest unto their fathers?
So understand the situation. The provocation kept coming. They kept going to Moshe. Now they're all in unison, right? Now he's lashing out at Yahweh. But in certain situations and circumstances, we get in situations where you can't really lash out at Yahweh, and you might lash out at the person in front of you. These people are provoking him, but nobody is being mindful to say, okay, y'all back up and leave this man alone. Leave this man alone. Because we've read, Moshe wasn't no slouch. But you have people who will not consider the old man. And they keep poking and pressing. There's a saying, don't roust an old lion. So at this point, they done got on his nerves, and he lashing out to Yahweh. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Whence should I have flesh to give unto all this people? For they weep unto me, saying, Give us flesh, that we may eat. I am not able to bear all these people alone, because it is too heavy for me.
But even in this lashing out, what is he doing? He's looking at himself. He's looking at his limitations. Can we do that? He says, I'm not able to bear all this people alone because it's too heavy for me. That's a confession. That's a cry for help. How many of us can do that? It is too much for me. Go ahead.
Verse 15. And if thou deal thus with me, kill me, I pray thee, out of hand, if I have found favor in thy sight, and let me not see my wretchedness.
So at this point, that man's saying, look, man, if you're going to continue to have me go this way, just kill me. I don't want to see my downfall. Just go ahead and kill me. And if we continue to read, this outcry then made Yahweh do what? Give him help. But how many of us keep going on and letting stuff build up inside of us and pretending like we're Atlas, like we just read about, like we can carry the weight of the world on our shoulders and not confess to our own shortcomings and say, man, enough is enough. I can't do this no more. I'm telling you, if you have the faith, and if you're walking the walk, even before a lot of us came to the truth, if you can confess when enough is enough, he will help. I'm sitting here letting you know that before I knew the name of Yahweh and I came into this truth, I got to that point. And I fell on my knees and said, I can't take no more. This was on a Friday. And on Monday, I saw the results of prayer. But if you keep acting like you can carry it, I'm going to sit back and watch you. Go ahead and read that next definition there for me, my brother.
H7451, Ra'ah, from H7489, bad, or as noun, evil, naturally or morally. This includes the second feminine form as adjective or noun, adversity, affliction, bad, calamity, displeasure, distress, evil, favoriteness, man, thing, exceedingly, great, grief, grievous.
So at the point of Moshe's reaching out and crying out, he was at this point of this definition, great grief. It's a grievous thing to have all this weight on you. And these people constantly coming at you. But even in our natural state, we have people that's constantly coming at you. Do we reach out to Yahweh? Do we reach out to our brothers and sisters and say, hey, look, man, this person pushing my buttons. You might even have to reach out to them and say, hey, look, man, why don't you back off and stay away from me? But that comes with knowing oneself. Knowing that wretched man that still exists. Or woman that still exists. Because the same way we talk about brothers and a brother might be quick to punch you in the face. Hey, we got some sisters that are quick to punch you in the face too. You push the wrong buttons. So let's not just think it's brothers alone. Hey, there's some firecrackers around here. But this is where we all learn to balance each other out. If we can be honest about ourselves. Go ahead, brother.
You know, you bring up a real good point concerning Moshe. When he did get to that point, he didn't make accusation about everybody else and what everybody else was doing. And what was crazy is it was other people coming at him.
Right.
But he didn't go before Yahweh and throw the blame game on every person who did this and did that. He went to Yahweh dealing with himself.
Right.
And that's the big difference that you find with individuals and how we deal with things. Rather than going to Yahweh to ask for help or strength, we take the Luciferian route and just do what he does, which is point fingers.
Right. With that said, in this worldly Gregorian calendar thing, we all knew about the New Year's resolution, right? Our New Year coming up. Some of us need to really look at ourselves and look at our walk and make some New Year's resolutions. Let's go to 2 Samuel chapter 12. Hey man, it's a defense mechanism that is quick to say, oh, no, they did this. Second Samuel chapter 12, and we're going to read verses 1 through 8.
And Yahweh sent Nathan unto David, and he came unto him, and said unto him, There were 2 men in one city, the one rich, the other poor. The rich man had exceeding many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing, save one little ewe lamb, which he had bought and nourished up and grew up together with him and with his children. It did eat of his own meat, and drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was unto him as a daughter. And there came a traveler unto the rich man, and he spared to take of him of his own flock and of his own herd, to dress for the wayfaring man that was come unto him, but took the poor man's lamb, and dressed it for the man that was come to him. And David's anger was greatly kindled against the man, and he said to Nathan, As Yahweh liveth, the man that hath done this thing shall surely die.
So that's most of us. We quick to look at the outward man. And really and truly, that we should have been pondering this whole thing. What you talking about? Who you talking about? But see, it's another man. So he quick to want to take this man's block off. Not examining his own deeds and his own ways. Go ahead.
Verse 6. And he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing, and because he had no pity. And Nathan said to David, Thou art the man. Thus saith Yahweh Elohim of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. And I gave thee thy master's house, and thy master's wives unto thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if thou had been too little, if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things.
And that's what I was talking about earlier. Going to Yahweh with prayers and supplications. Moshe went to Yahweh with prayers and supplications and let Yahweh know his limitation. Yahweh gave him help. 70 men. Do we have to wait for somebody to come and say, you're that man, before we then examine ourselves? Once again, it says, judge yourself, so you not be judged. It didn't say judge your brother, so you won't be judged. Judge thyself. So that way, when it comes down to judgment, you've already taken care of certain things. You've already dealt with certain situations and circumstances. Let's go to Luke chapter 18. No, the biggest thing is to think that you've got it all under control. I can tell you that that's the point of where you're about to fall. When you really think that you've got everything under control, that's a problem. But the judging yourself allows you to tweak and change things. Not to say that you have it all under control, but you know it's there. Then you can start dealing with it. Like I said, some things you'll be able to take care of, and it'll never bother you again. And then there's that one little thing that'll constantly be there. Just like we read with Saul. Saul had one little issue that Yahweh would not take away from him. He would not tell us what it is, but Yahweh wouldn't take it away. But what he did, he learned not to allow that to stop him from doing his job. Whatever it was, he didn't let it get in the way of him doing what he needed to do. Luke chapter 18, and we're going to read verses 9 through 14.
And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous, and despised others.
And he spake this parable unto certain which trust in themselves that they were righteous, and despised others. Looking at the people on the outside, but not looking at yourself. But why are you looking at all the people on the outside? Believe me, they're looking at you too. Okay? Go ahead.
Verse 10. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisees stood and prayed thus with himself, Elohim, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican.
I'm telling you, this is the beginning of your fall right here. I mean, you got to have some to go to Yahweh in that manner. You got to have some big brass ones to go to Yahweh like that. And then you're going to look at somebody else and like this man over here. Do you know that man? Go ahead.
Verse 12. I fast twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess.
So all this fasting he doing don't avail to nothing because your heart ain't right. And I really want to know. Maybe he knows. Because if you got to fast twice a week, it sounds like you just ain't really in the right place. Or you think fasting is some righteous act. So now it's just something to do. Twice a week? Then it's just something to do. For you to come out and say, I fast twice a week. Okay. It's either you got a lot of problems going on in your life, or you just made fasting some common thing. And we hear people say that all the time. Oh, I'm fasting. For what? I'm just fasting. Okay. Because fasting has become this new fad thing to do. Is there any change that you're looking to have while you're fasting? Some prayers and supplications going on while you're fasting? Or is it just the fad thing? Go ahead.
And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, Elohim, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For every one that exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humble himself shall be exalted.
All right, let's jump down to verse 18. At the end of the day, it says he wouldn't even lift up his eyes. Why? You know the kind of wretched manner of man he is? He's being honest with himself. I know I don't deserve to be here. I know I don't deserve to live. I'm not going to come up here and exalt myself and pretend like I've got it all together and I'm all that. But the fact that he wouldn't lift up his eyes was what? A sign of shame. A sign of humbleness. He let the haughtiness go. Go ahead, verse 18.
And a certain ruler asked him, saying, Good master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And Yahshua said unto him, Why callest thou me good? None is good, save one, that is Elohim.
So here we are, Yahshua, a sinless man, refusing to be called good. He's telling you, why you calling me good? There's none good but Elohim. And we know that that's our righteous example. But the righteous example said, why you calling me good? Go ahead.
Verse 20. Thou knowest the commandments. Do not commit adultery. Do not kill. Do not steal. Do not bear false witness. Honor thy father and mother, thy mother. And he said, All these have I kept from my youth up. Now, when Yahshua heard these things, he said unto him, Yet lackest thou one thing. Sell all that thou hast, and distribute unto the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come follow me.
Now, in this day and age, if somebody came to one of us and said this, and we shut them down, man, they heartless. They ain't got no love. No, the love came in the fact that I'm trying to tell you to get the haughtiness out of you. That's the love. I see you puffed up. I'm trying to let you know you need to come back to a humble state. Go ahead.
Verse 23. And when he heard this, he was very sorrowful, for he was very rich. And when Yahshua saw that he was very sorrowful, he said, How hardly shall they that have riches enter into the kingdom of Elohim?
How hardly shall they, hardly, didn't say they couldn't or they wouldn't. How hardly? Because what? Just like Erica Badu said, bag lady, you got too much stuff. You can't hurry up. Because your riches, the cares of this world are going to slow you down. While we are here accumulating stuff, how many of us stop to look at how much of a burden it's going to be when it's time to walk away from all this stuff? That's an example for all of us. We all sit in this seat right now. How many of us are looking at how hard it's going to be to walk away from all this stuff when we have to? If you're watching the news right now, you see them Ukrainian people getting the hell on? How many of them sitting back there saying, I'm not leaving? Hey, the rest of them getting the hell on. How many fathers stayed back while mom and children said, we out? We gonna run for the hills for safety. But the more you acquire, the harder it is to walk away. What did it say in the movie, 60 seconds or less? What do you have that's going to hold you back and hold you down when it's time to move? Let's go to Isaiah chapter 64. Isaiah chapter 64, and we're going to read verses 1 through 8. And that's going to conclude tonight's class. I mean, there's folks here that don't have a spouse or children, and they're seeing it as a bad thing at this point in time. Hey man, it's soon time to get up out of here, especially those of us with young children. Hey man, we got a bigger concern than the man who can just pack his backpack and get the hell on. Because while he throw his backpack, you're going to have to throw your backpack, your kid's backpack, and the kid on your back. Go ahead. Verse 64, chapter 64 and verse 1 through 8.
Oh, that thou wouldest rend the heavens, that thou wouldest come down, that the mountains might flow down at thy presence. As when the melting fire burneth, the fire causeth the water to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversaries, that the nations may tremble at thy presence. And when thou didst terrible things which we looked not for, thou comest down, the mountain flowed down at thy presence. For since the beginning of the world, men have not heard, nor perceived by the ear, neither hath the eye seen, O Elohim, besides thee, what he hath prepared for him that waiteth for him. Thou meetest him that rejoiceth and worketh righteousness, those that remember thee in thy way. Behold, thou art wroth, for we have for we have sinned, and those is continuous, and we shall be saved. But we are all as unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags, and we all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities, like the wind, have taken us away.
So how many of us really understand that we ain't nothing but filthy rags? Once you can accept that, once you can state that out of your mouth, that's humble beginnings. Not only just, it says all our righteousness are as filthy rags. But do we stop trying to do righteousness? We keeping on. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And there is none that calleth upon thy name, that stirreth up himself to take hold of thee. For thou hast hid thy face from us, and hast consumed us because of our iniquities. But now, O Yahweh, thou art our Father, we are the clay, and thou art potter, and we all are the work of thy hand.
So while the potter is shaping the clay, what are we desiring to be shaped into? The potter is shaping unrighteous vessels just as he's shaping righteous vessels. So are we judging ourselves and looking at what we're putting forth so he can see what kind of vessel he needs to turn us into? That's all we're going to do for this evening. You guys, enjoy your new moon. Shalom.
Shalom.